How you doing?
I'm awesome.
So Shane Wallace from WorkApp.
Correct.
Yep. Tell me a little bit about WorkApp and what you're all about and what you've done and
Sure, no worries.
where you're from and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question. What is WorkApp? WorkApp is an industry marketplace. That's what we set out to be as a platform. Combined all of the global industries into one platform, and then we've removed the fee structures where the others are charging. So from automotive to real estate, to jobs, businesses, digital shop for businesses with merchant facility, shopping cart, PayPal, all of the places that they're spending and charging fees right now, commercially, we decided to put it all into one platform and remove the fees. We're just going with a very simple digital advertising model, which we call WorkApp Billboards. But we want to help the little businesses out there, the small and medium businesses that have basically been dumped by the digital tidal wave over the last decade and now having to come up with lots of money for search engine optimization or make themselves a social media personality, and that's not easy for the average tradie. It's not easy for the average person, and we want WorkApp to be the platform that comes in and basically helps them surf the digital wave instead of being dumped by it.
So it's kind of like a Craigslist?
It's a combination of many platforms out there. So yes, it is a classifieds platform. It's also a real estate selling platform like the major ones that you see. It's also an automotive selling platform like the major ones you see. It's also a digital shop like the e-commerce platforms.
Yep.
So it's a combination of all industries into one without the fees.
Gotcha. And so I guess, let's go back to before this. Where are you from? And how'd where are you from originally? And then how'd you come up with this idea and how'd you fall into this? And tell me your journey.
Sure, no worries. Well, so I'm a true blue fair dinky die Aussie. So I was born in Australia and I actually joined the military at age 17. So it's pretty much straight out of school into the military in the Australian Army. And I did 4 years there and enjoyed every bit of it and got out to become a tradesman in the landscaping game. So I did a bit of landscaping and fencing and retaining walls and various sort of stuff that comes along with landscaping in general. And so it was a business venture, but it didn't really do well because I was only a young fella and I didn't really have any sort of business skills. So from there I actually became a postman on a bike, and which suited me because I used to race motocross when I was young. So I think I wrecked 3 postie bikes before I left that job over 2 years from wringing the neck of the bike. And from there I became a salesperson in a bodybuilding supplement company called Max's, Amino Active Australia. And for me that was really the leg up in life for me to find my niche and what it is that my skill set really was of value to people, was as a salesperson. I was 10 years as a sales rep in that job with Max's and just loved every bit of it, From Gold Coast to Darwin was my area, and I embraced it and I learned a lot of skills through that period of time. And then interestingly, I decided to go into business again for myself after that in rainwater tanks and industrial sheds. So kind of back into the tradesman type building game as well, because I did see an opportunity to make some real money. And so I had a crack at it, but things changed and I didn't have enough skills once again as a business owner. So that went broke, that business. I went insolvent in 2008 when everything changed and the government changed the rules and regulations, and houses had to have rainwater tanks by law, and then overnight houses no longer had to have rainwater tanks by law, and so all of a sudden my business model was completely crushed overnight.
Yeah.
So I had to basically change tact and work out still at that age what I wanted to be when I grew up type thing. And so my wife and I actually went travelling around Australia holding our own health seminars, as she's a naturopath, and we jumped in a caravan and a four-wheel drive and went around Australia. And it was when we returned from that trip and we were getting ready to go again, my brother Chad rang me and said, let's build an app that finds the closest active workers to the job sites because us tradies really need it. My initial response was absolutely not. I'm not interested in building anything to do with tech because personally I still today haven't used a computer, I just don't use them. And the first app that I ever downloaded was mine. So I had never actually even downloaded an app. I just wasn't really into that tech scene, you know what I mean? A old school sort of tradie type mannerism where phones were for calling and texting. Even as a salesperson, it was back in the old Nokia days when they weren't these smartphones. So a phone was just for calling and texting in my world. And so when people did go to these smartphones, I never went with them. I just stayed with the old Nokia for ages. And so my initial response was no. And it was a week later when he rang me and he said, look, I think we should build this app that finds the closest active workers to the job sites, because we really do need it as tradesmen. There's no platform that basically geolocates the tradesperson and then gives them the closest active worker to that job site, and the tradie doesn't pay and the worker doesn't pay, just no fees. So the idea became, quite valid in that it came from a need, not from a money-making venture. Mm-hmm. So we did decide to pursue it, and for the first 2 years, we failed dismally trying. We spent a bit of money trying, and it didn't work out. We just didn't have the technical capabilities or the development capabilities. However, at the start of 2015, I managed to team up with a professional development company called Milestones Technology Group. And together we formed a partnership, and 4.5 years, here we are later. We're about to go live with version 3 next month. We've got the platform up and running. It works a treat. And so essentially it was a situation where we dared to fail in order to succeed at building a tech platform.
And so I guess I have a couple questions, but first off, the point of difference is that the geolocating?
That's one of the point of differences. It will locate you at where you're at the time and then give you the closest active result that's inside our system. So we don't scrape data off other systems or anything like that. It's registered user base on the WorkApp platform. But in addition to that, it's also a free advertising model for businesses right around the world, because you can advertise your business on WorkApp and you can boost it on the What's Fresh showcase. There's no cost to boost it, and each time you boost yourself in front of all the eyeballs that are opening the app at any one time. All inquiries go direct to the business owner or the person that's got the listing created. And so it is a 100% free advertising model, along with a combination of those very popular industry platforms, like the real estate. There's major platforms out there that are catering toward the real estate agents, where they're listing all of their stock, all of their rentals, all of their sales, and then they're paying quite handsomely to list those, like many thousands of dollars. And then the inquiries are going direct to the real estate agent. Well, we've built a version of those major platforms, but ours is free. There is no thousands of dollars to list your sales or your rentals, and the inquiries go direct. And the simple fact is, the reason we can do it for free is because of digital evolution. The industry has come so far in the last 6 years that I've been developing this platform. What we can do now, we can do for a fraction of the cost than what we could even do it 5 and 6 years ago. So we're able to offer a truly free industry platform where it is currently costing all businesses and people elsewhere, and now we'll just go for a digital advertising model called WorkApp Billboards. So we've gone for a new age model by combining all of the older school industry platforms into one and removing the fees. So it really is for the times for the small and medium businesses.
I guess it's just, how do you get the consumer to change over to your platform from these other more established platforms? It's hard for the consumer to go, hey, I need to jump onto WorkApp.
That's right.
Because that's going to be my solution instead of sticking with something that's currently there.
Absolutely. And look, that is really a large challenge for us, Josh. We understand that and we know that. Interestingly though, I play a real mindset game. One of the things that I've immersed myself in over the last decade is personal development, and the way that the mind works, and the way that you can either think from an abundant mindset or a lack mindset. And one of the things along the way where people would say, how are you going to get the people? One of that question you just asked. And my answer was always, I'm going to stay focused on how I'm going to have it ready for when they come, not how I'm going to get them. And so that was where my energy went into building this thing so that it could handle an unlimited amount of users. Now here we are 6 years later, and we're at the tail end of the development and the start of the true marketing to get the people on it. So this is the challenge that we're going to endure over the next 6 to 12 months, is the awareness of what WorkApp will do for people and how do we get them to jump, as you say, whilst they've got this opportunity elsewhere right now. But the fact is, for anyone listing stuff on those other platforms, it is costing them money. And in this day and age, margins are getting lower and lower, and we need to find true ways of how you can enhance your margins within your product. And this is what WorkApp offers. So I guess the answer is, once people truly realise that we've built this to help people in the digital age and give it to them for free with no strings attached, I think we'll get the support of the people and they'll come on. And when it hits a certain tipping point, all of a sudden things are overnight, we become what's perceived to be an overnight success, when in actual fact it's taken us 6 years to get to this point, you know.
So free is the major point difference for
Free,
a lot of those platforms.
and geolocating you and giving you the closest instead of who pays to be at the top. The other platforms will traditionally make you pay to rank for a priority listing, whereas we're not going to allow anyone to pay to be at the top of the WorkApp search results. It's based on the closest. You can change the search location, and we can be here in, you know, the Gold Coast and then searching in Darwin for a hairdresser or anything. So it's not just confined to your immediate area. It's just that the default setting is giving you the closest active result first, and then you can then just change the area in which you're searching.
My initial thought of how to maybe launch would be in a certain demographic within the platform.
One particular.
And
Yeah.
have you thought about that?
Yeah, and what's kind of happened by default is the free advertising model. I mean, you know, to get yourself free advertising on social media right now, you've basically got to make yourself a personality. You've got to post relentlessly, and you're still only going to get inside your friend group. You're not going to get outside of your friend group unless you pay. And that's on all of those platforms. Well, WorkApp doesn't work that way. It doesn't have a friend group. And when you list something on WorkApp and you boost that, that now goes out on exponentially a worldwide search. So if you're willing to put the effort in and boost the listing, you're not now confined to an algorithm that's keeping you locked into just your friend group, and you've got to try and work out clever ways of getting outside of that. WorkApp doesn't put that constraint on the consumer. You list it, you boost it, and you're now out on the search. So it truly is a free advertising platform, and so that's the angle we're really going to launch from, that perspective. I mean, let's take the small plumber, for example. Right now, if Mrs. Jones, as an example, goes onto the major search engines and types in plumber, they get the one 10 suburbs away that paid the most to rank at the top from search engine optimization. Well, on WorkApp, she will get the one a street away that's closest to her geolocation, you know what I mean? So that's free advertising for that plumber, where it would have cost the plumber thousands of dollars to try and rank at the top of search. So what we've actually built, first and foremost, not only just because it's a combination of all industries, it is a free advertising platform for all businesses worldwide with no strings attached. So, you know, I'm not sure where you can sort of point out in comparison to where that's on offer anywhere else.
It would just be the only thing that comes to mind, because I haven't used the WorkApp a whole bunch. So the only thing that comes to mind is the Gumtrees, the Craigslist,
Yes.
those other types of things that I could go on there and actually
That's right.
post whatever it is to sell something.
That's correct. That's right.
And so,
But see, your real estate agent is not going onto those platforms that you speak of and listing all of their rental properties and all of their for sale items, their sale properties. That's not geared that way. Whereas WorkApp's actually geared for them to list all of their for sale properties with a 5-minute video inside each listing and unlimited pictures, and all inquiries go directly to the real estate agent or business. Those other platforms aren't geared that way. They're more classified type platforms where you're selling knickknacks and, you know, you're posting out, you know, different things, whereas we've actually industry specifically geared it for real estate and for automotive and for digital shop owners.
Okay.
Right? So this is...
you've tailored, I think that's a big thing, you've tailored it per industry.
Correct.
Within the actual app, so that those organizations have it within their sector, can start to promote their business accordingly.
It's going to be the #1 real estate selling platform worldwide, simply because it's free where the others are charging many thousands of dollars. It's going to be the #1 automotive selling platform worldwide because it's free where the others are charging lots for the leads. I mean, platforms out there are charging the automotive industry $50 per inquiry. And that doesn't mean that the automotive dealer sells that car to that person. And quite often the automotive dealer doesn't even get a successful connection going on. That happens quite often. Whereas we're allowing the leads to go direct, we're allowing instant access back to the inquirer, and there is no fees either way. The automotive dealers can list all of their stock. They can also promote their brand. They can also drive traffic to their website if they want to use WorkApp to actually specifically do that. But the key is that it's geared to them specifically like the automotive selling platforms and like the real estate selling platforms. Digital shop is a big one, you know, e-commerce, and you're quite familiar with e-commerce, and we know the big major platforms out there, and we know that they're charging somewhere between 10 and 15% of the sale, right? Well, WorkApp has built digital shop with merchant facility, shopping cart and PayPal, 0% of the fees of the sale, no fees. So for a single mum to go and make gift baskets in the backyard and to be able to put them on a WorkApp digital shop and to then have access to the market without any algorithms blocking them, just to their friend group, actually putting them out on an open search to be able to boost the listing without a cost for a person to inquire for the gift basket, for them to be able to sell the gift basket without having to share 1 cent of margin with us. You know, that's a game changer in this new digital age because, like I say, margins are low. People are looking for a way to be able to thrive. And what we aim to provide with WorkApp is a combination industry platform that helps people thrive instead of just having to survive and share margins.
Can you tell me a little bit about that whole process from the time that you came up with this idea and some of the challenges that you faced through the time till this point?
Sure. Well, it was interesting because I had no preconceived idea of what it was going to take to build a digital platform. As I say, the first app that I downloaded was mine. You know, apps were really only just starting to come out, say 6 years ago. Most of the platforms, the current platforms, were using the HTML web version and starting to tack their apps on to the end of it. Well, we did a total opposite. We built the app first and only tacked the HTML web version on like 12 months, 18 months ago, and then developed it from that point. We wanted to be known as an app, but we soon became a platform. But in the early days starting out, because I just didn't understand what it was going to take, you know, I was led to believe that you can go and build an app for 50 grand or 100 grand or something like that, and that's what, you know, people talk about. And so that was what I was led to believe, and that's what we tried to do. But you know, it cost a lot more than we're many millions of dollars that we've spent over the years now developing this platform because of what it takes to have the back end capability, secure data, scalability. You know what I mean? And a platform that actually works when 200,000 people click the same button all at the same second. You know, there's a lot of nuts and bolts that go into that in the back end to make that so that it's actually a working product. This is not something that I realised, and so when I set out to start building the app, I figured we'll be paying a developer 50 to 100 grand and we'd have an app and then they just run themselves from that point. That's it, you don't spend any more money. But that's like saying buying a car and getting it home and saying it's never going to cost another cent. Well, it is. It's going to cost you every week for the rest of that vehicle's life, right? Well, same with apps. It's going to cost you every week for the rest of that app's life.
And so what are some of the specific challenges that you ran into?
Look, design and actual user flow was hard for us. We failed dismally in those first 2 years trying to work that out. When we teamed up with our development partners, MTG, they brought that to the table, fortunately, so we were able to utilise their knowledge and their skills of 20 years plus to bring the design and the user flow. But even still, that took a lot of trial and error with us and them as well. We had to really go through the process, develop something, put it live, and then basically see if that worked. You know what I mean? So it was a real trial and error game. There was no real set formula to, here, just do this and this is what works. It was a real suck it and see. You develop it, you put it live, you test it, and it takes a lot to test it, a lot, you know, of effort to test this on all the different devices, you know, Huawei's and Galaxy's and Sony's and, you know, all of the different ones that Android has. It's just a big job, way bigger job than I gave it credit for. But, you know, through going through that process, when we did have our first version live, after I'd failed those first 2 years and then we actually got a version live, it just wasn't up to the standard that the people expect these days. Social media sets such a high standard that really, if you're going to develop an app and a platform now, it better look good and it better act swift and slick, or it's just not even in the game. So, you know, once we got that first version live, we did start to play with it and modify it and alter it, and there's a lot of time involved in that, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, 'cause I have a friend, he's a pilot for Qantas, and he developed an app It's called Cruncher.
Right.
And he spent the last 3 years developing the thing. Got it to the point that it's just like you, got it to that point where it's ready to be marketed and sold, but the end user doesn't necessarily want to use it.
Yes.
Is what he discovered.
Yes.
So he got to the end, and then now he's having to redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
To try to get it to user friendliness.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's this gap of an idea
Yes.
between that and then what actually the user is going to want to
That's
use.
right. Well, we're very fortunate that our shareholder group, we've got quite a large shareholder group of private investors, and they really did help to become our test squad as well. Because to be able to have these platforms up and running, you need it tested from so many different angles, in so many different situations, in a live, simulation. It's not impossible, but it's not easy to be able to get it tested and user friendly, and that was the task for us. So we did version 1, and then 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3 and 1.4, and then on version 1.9 was actually quite a big upgrade for us back end wise, not so much front end wise. Then from version 1.9, version 2 was a huge upgrade for us front end wise, and that gave us the slick look and the user flow, and we also obviously took that from user feedback on what people wanted and what they expected. So we sort of had to mould ourselves with the feedback of the people along the way, and not just our own ideas as well. Although our own ideas did start to work, and MTG, they brought a lot to the table, not just from a development standpoint, but the design and the user flow was big for them as well, and they've done a fabulous job, fortunately. So now we're actually about to launch version 3 next month. Version 3 for us kind of represents the completion of what we set out to develop. So it's taken us a solid 4.5, 5 years with professionals. We spent 2 years and failed, then with another 4.5 years with professionals, it's taken us to develop what we set out to develop with the user feedback and with the results. People are saying they want WorkApp because they want margins back in their product, they want a way of free advertising, they don't want to have to try and buy things outside of their friend groups to get their message out to the world, which social media is the channel these days. It's a great opportunity to get it out. But if you want to get it out far and wide in social media, it's going to cost you. It's pretty simple. You know what I mean? Whereas if you want to get it out far and wide on WorkApp, it's not going to cost you if you're willing to open the app every day and boost your listing. So there's a big differentiating factor.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there with social media, and to navigate social media, it's own. It's a
beast.
Yeah, there's a lot of different channels out there, a lot of different demographics using these different channels.
That's right.
It's hard to figure out how to get to the end consumer and
That's right.
and target them.
It's saturated, and what I've noticed in my journey is how their algorithms change over time as well, and that's their business model, and that's fine, and that's based on their revenue capabilities and the analytical data capture so that they can obviously monetize that. But I think there's a cut-off point where now the monetization of the platform is now not benefiting the people. That's the problem we've got going on. And I understand commercially there's got to be a good commercial aspect to these platforms. They cost a lot of money to run and they make a lot of money. But at what point do you now, make it hard for the people to get out there through algorithmic blocks and more revenue capability? At what point is enough sort of thing? And that was what we took the standpoint with WorkApp of, putting the people first, not the revenue first. Yes, it will make revenue over time. That will evolve as we get more and more users, and that's fine. But it will never be by disadvantaging the free closest plumber from Mrs. Jones, right? Whereas on the others, it will disadvantage from that because they're more worried about the revenue than they are about getting Mrs. Jones to find the plumber one street away. And we're opposite. It's
almost that open source model of WordPress, or there's some other ones. There's There's another open source platform that's coming along that's making headway on social media. I forgot the name of them. But those type of models, so that there's no one really controlling what you see on the front end.
That's right. And that's us. You control your listings on WorkApp. You have unlimited listings. You can deactivate any of those listings with one press of the button, which pauses it and makes it invisible. If that little plumber doesn't want any more calls because he or she has 3 months worth of work in front of them, they can just deactivate that listing and not delete it. And all of a sudden something happens and they do want it live for the next week, they can just reactivate that listing with one press of a button. And once again, there's no confinement of where that's getting seen from an algorithm sense in our back end. We're allowing the open source to go direct to the market. You know, we want to help the market thrive in the digital age, rather than having to work out ways, clever ways of how to make themselves a personality on social media. I mean, that's what it's become, I've noticed, is people have to become their own little movie star to be able to get their message out, and everyone's becoming a young entrepreneur these days because the game's changed and there's a lot more people, you know. So I think an industry platform that basically gives them net neutrality, I like that word, level playing field, you know, and then your social media is where you're going to go and now and enhance your brand and enhance your message to the people and really sort of cut through your point of difference to others. But commercially, where's the platform where it's just not going to cost you any money and there's no strings attached and you can just get in and do your job and your business and your sales and your rentals and not have it be, you know, through having to jump through hoops.
Gotcha. So if you could give somebody that was, let's say I had an idea and I was going to go build an app and I'm like, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. Because he's here, he'll like, oh, I've got this great idea. And a lot of people go after it now.
I hear it all the time.
Because of the perception that it can be done and it's not that hard. And there's a lot of different, you know, from website building platforms to app building platforms. What's the piece of advice that you would give those types of people that are trying to jump on that bandwagon?
Sure. Look, first things first, you've got to start with the business side of things. Fortunately, from going broke in business prior to this and a bunch of other stuff that I'd learned along the way, the first thing I did in starting WorkApp was the business intellectual property. The very first thing. WorkApp is trademarked in 24 countries. Right? This was the very first thing I had in mind. I had a good friend in business. After 10 years in the money game, she was sent a cease and desist letter. Stop using this brand. You can't say you're this name anymore. Nearly sent her broke. And she was a successful business. It took her 12 months to try and backflip out of that to rebrand herself and everything. So the very first thing I did was trademark this logo with the name WorkApp in it. And then we set about an international trademark as well. So the first thing I did is I went to a solicitor. I found myself a good business lawyer and I started there before I pursued anything further with the idea. We already had the idea, but it really did come down to tying up the intellectual property because, you know, you're going to waste your money otherwise and come into roadblocks. So after we'd set up the intellectual property protection, then I registered the company, and from there it was, let's just see if we can build this thing. Let's just actually have a go if we can build this thing. And that's not easy depending on who you've got in your team and whether they're charging you or whether they're working for equity. I was very much based on having people work for equity and not paying them a lot of money because we didn't have much money and the company wasn't making any cash flow. So it was kind of like trying to find those right people for a bit of an equity swap. So that's what I would say to people out there is, first of all, tie up your intellectual property. That's key. Secondly, see if you can get yourself a squad that's willing to come in on an equity basis rather than a pay basis. Now your risk is very low. Now you can just suck it and see for a period of time and see if you can get what they call an MVP, minimal viable product, live, and then alter that based on consumer feedback, and you really could have something that, you know, could become quite large over time if you've got a great idea.
And so, first of all, trademarking is it's a relatively easy way to protect your IP. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a beast of its own. It really is, and you know you need to seek advice from an intellectual, what do you call it, a proper intellectual property lawyer. And there's so many facets to it. For me, I just kept it really simple. All I really wanted was a trademark of this logo with the word WorkApp in it, because that gave me the ability to say I'm WorkApp. And all I wanted was for no one else out there to to say to me, stop saying you're WorkApp, we're WorkApp. Well, that's not happening with us because we're trademarked as WorkApp in all of those international countries. So patenting's a whole other level and a very costly measure. Trademarking can be a very costly measure as well. But once again, my mindset was not based on me saying to everyone, hey, I'm WorkApp and you can't be. My mindset was based on being able to be WorkApp and you just let me be WorkApp. Whatever you want to be, that's great. As long as I'm allowed to be WorkApp right now, we've got no problems. Once again, an abundant mindset. So the costs weren't huge in trademarking. Substantial, but not huge.
And then can you tell me a little bit more about MVP? It's a minimum viable product.
Yep.
I think a lot of people don't. If you're not in the tech world, it's very something common in the technology world of coming up with an agile business plan and then coming up with an MVP and trying to get at that point where then you can start going out and look for funding and that.
That's right.
Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I like the idea of going and sorting your IP out straight away. You know, there's not a big cost involved in that if you do it right. And then obviously sitting down with the team that you've formed to take this idea to the next stage, which is an MVP. And you know, you want to make that as painless as possible, and you don't want to put too much pressure on it having to be awesome, because the fact is you're not getting your MVP awesome, you're just not. And the more you spend time trying to make this awesome, you're just wasting time. So my advice is just to get something live and then to see if it taps around, see if the buttons work, see if it actually goes to the page that it's supposed to go to. You know, that's the test process. From there, it really is now, you know, engaging a group of testers that can become, you know, the voice on how the product should look and feel and act from a user flow sense, because that's the real key. But first you need an MVP, or how are you even going to know? Yeah,
how are you going to know? And then when you try to present it to possible investors or anything like that,
that's right.
You have something there that's tangible, that actually works, but it's not perfect yet. You got to, and I think that's the way that you step through that process. Definitely,
because from there, obviously, you know, you'll have somewhat of a business model in mind as to where this platform could make its revenue, and that's all, you know, in discussion with potential investors.
And I think the market is changing while you're trying to develop this too. So it's a constantly evolving market in the technology industry. And so you're constantly probably having to alter your plan.
Yep.
So that's why you develop that agile business plan.
Yes.
To what's currently happening out there, and you can pivot and start to go into where the market really wants your product.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at us, we started out as the closest active worker and became everything in the whole industry into one. We had to mould with that over time, because it became, how do I keep the value proposition alive and have the value proposition be very, very unique by comparison to anything out there? It was a big task because it was a development feat that we're up against. Not the idea. Could we actually develop the tech to back the idea? That's what it came down to for us. And fortunately, because I partnered with professionals that have put their blood, sweat and tears behind it, we've soldiered on through that 5-year grind of development. You know, like, it's a huge grind. It's not something that I ever foresaw when I started out. I thought this was a 6-month project, maybe 12 months. And here I am 6 years in, and we're only really just entering the market, you know? So...
and I think that's super hard to get your mind around. I think that's with any business. Any business, you don't see all the pitfalls that you're going to run into.
That's right.
Of getting it all set up, registering your business, then setting up operations, setting up, you know, your marketing, and then trying to get to that point where you're actually going to sell something.
Yes.
Then it's a couple more stages from there once you even get it market ready.
That's right.
Then you got to prove to the market that you're going to be able to deliver on what you said.
That's right.
And then they have to want your services.
That's right. And it's not that easy in this day and age when we're spoilt for choice in this country, and in the US as well. We really are spoilt for choice. You know, there's lots of platforms that are already established and up and running and offering great value. And so that's always been somewhat of a barrier in the back of my mind, but not something that I've ever put my focus on or allowed it to be a thing that stressed me out of how I was going to get people to use this, because I just knew when I look at the other platforms and how they're making money and the barriers they're creating for the user to get at each other because their revenue model's in the middle, I figured we could just reverse that, pull the revenue out where they've got it and let everyone directly to each other. There's a lot of margin gained for the small and medium businesses through that process. And when you put enough people on a platform like WorkApp, obviously we can create a good, clean revenue model from advertising without disadvantaging the free closest plumber, hairdresser, you know what I mean? That sort of thing.
I think if there's a way to launch in one particular sector,
Yep.
like real estate, like the cars,
Yes.
something of that nature, and then in a geographic region as well.
Yes.
If you could get everybody in a certain geographic region,
Yes.
in a certain sector to use it,
Yes.
something that's isolated.
Yep.
Let's say New Zealand, for instance. I'm just
Yes.
talking off the top
Yep.
of my head. Let's say New Zealand.
Yes.
And then from there, I think it could build momentum either into other sectors or other geographic regions.
Definitely. Definitely. Yep. And like where our focus is Gold Coast to Sunshine Coast right now, but we've also got a very strong focus in India. We've always had a strong focus in India from day one, even before I teamed up with my development partners, MTG. We were still had a large focus in India, simply because it's such a densely populated market. There is a lot of people in a small area, like you say, and we felt that the value proposition of WorkApp, where it was the closest active result instead of who pays, was really geared toward a densely populated market like India. So we figured it would not only be the best testing ground for us to test the concept, but to also get people to actually click buttons, because that's the hardest thing right now. You know, I can go and tell everyone about WorkApp here and they go, oh, that's a great idea. But does that mean they actually download the app now and go and click buttons? That's another 6 to 12 month process. You know, we've got to say hello a handful of times. I've got to say, how'd you go? Oh, no, you haven't got around to that yet. Oh, you will get around to doing it. And essentially you'll do it when everyone's doing it, right? And it's always been that chicken or the egg. Well, once again, I never worried about how I was going to get people on it. I stayed focused on how I was going to have it ready for when they come, because it's such a huge development feat that we were taking on. I knew we were over the hump about 12 months ago in our development capabilities. While still a while to go, our development capabilities are awesome right now as a team. So that to me is our success.
The other thing that comes to mind initially is voice.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I have an Amazon Alexa at home now.
Yep.
I'm teaching it to do stuff, right?
Yes, yep.
I'm on the back end, and I'm teaching it to say things when I trigger words.
Yep.
And I was just thinking that the next stage would be not just buying Amazon products, physical new stuff, but also used or house any of these things that are going to be on your source me a plumber on the Gold Coast of. So I just thought that
it's a good
that
integration.
might be something as you start to get traction in one sector.
Yes.
If you could capitalize on that voice within that sector, then you could start to capitalize on that platform.
Definitely. You know, there's a decent list of development upgrades that we'll entertain over the next 12 to 24 months in order of priority of what's going to deliver the best value for our users. But that's certainly one of them that you mentioned, you know, because as more and more people use the likes of Alexa, it's something that we'd probably look to integrate as a capability in our platform as well. This is the beauty of what I've noticed with platforms like ours, is you never stop developing. You've got to continue to develop and grow and offer awesome value. But, you know, every business is like that now, not just tech platforms. If you're in business right now, you really need to be reinventing yourself every 12 to 24 months. If you're not proactive toward looking for more value toward your customer, you'll get overtaken by the person around the corner. And that's the day and age we live in, because of the connectivity, because of social media, because there's so much option. Really, you're fighting to deliver that value, and so your head has to be in the space of looking for more ways, like you just mentioned, and that's certainly on the horizon for us, is to just continue to grow into the future.
I think it's hard for people to do because they're already they already start to get customers.
Yeah.
They start to bring on
Yep.
a business, and they start operating, and then, oh no, like I'm running into, I grew too much, and now I need software to be implemented, or I need to start marketing this other way. Now I have to kind of drop everything,
Yep.
and then start up this new technology, whether it's software
Yep.
or operations or training somebody up, or one of my guys left. I mean, small business and medium, all sectors
Yep.
of business.
Absolutely.
Need to be innovative, need to be prepared, and probably delegate a lot of those tasks down the line.
Yep, and staying light and lean is the key, in my view. We're a nice light team, we're a boutique team of professionals, and we're kept it nice and small so that we can keep our costs low and so we can keep our risk low. And I think that's something that the average business really has to take into consideration these days, is growth versus costs, and how do you grow your revenue without having to grow your cost profile exponentially as well. And that's the trick for businesses. It's not easy, especially in some businesses where they're very labour intensive and they need those extra staff.
And I think, so what's your opinion on, you mentioned earlier, individuals having to come up with their own marketing, they're almost their own marketing agency now.
Yep.
How do you stand out from all that noise and all the crowd?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It really is. Personally, I think it comes down to the willingness of what you're prepared to do to get the job done. A lot of people would want to just sit at home on the computer and just have it sort of be quite easy, when in actual fact you've got to get out there. You've got to go and network. You've got to go and put your face in front of people, and you've got to get ready to face the rejection, because it is just part and parcel of what comes. You're going to get people that support it, and you're going to get people that say it won't work. And realistically, the more people that say to me it won't work, I get excited, because I know that they're part of the journey. You have to have them. If you didn't get them, then you're not experiencing the whole journey. So it's really getting out of your own way, getting out of the house and going out there and looking for the opportunities. It was funny, for about 2 years there, when the product was in development but not working. That was really hard for me, because I was out there selling a platform that wasn't working. And it's like the hardest thing to sell is thin air, right? And so often I would leave home and my wife would say, "Where are you going?" I'd go off to work and I'd actually have nowhere to go. But I would just leave the house, because by just leaving the house and going to a coffee shop or something like that, opportunities came. I bumped into people, you know what I mean? I got to tell someone about WorkApp. I found an investor, you know what I mean? Like, just opportunities came whenever I left the house. So I just made a point of just leaving the house every single day, even with nowhere to go.
So not just social media, networking?
Networking is key. Networking is absolutely key. I went to so many networking events throughout 2015, 2016, 2017. I was at a lot of different networking events, always with my WorkApp logo. I wear this 7 days a week, and if I haven't got this in, I've got a WorkApp hat on. Yep. Branding is key, I think, and people underestimate just how important it is. If you're going to do something that's going to get out there to the masses, you've got to brand yourself. So I don't take that for granted. I wear this 24/7. Yep. I've always got WorkApp on. And some people might not like to do that, but at the end of the day, it's what I said before, it's willingness. What are you actually willing to do? What are the extra 1% things that you're willing to do to get your product out there? Yeah. Otherwise, you can just go and pay for it if you want, and go and get a marketing company, but there's a lot of cost involved in that. And if your company's not making money now, well, how can you afford both? So your own marketer, your own person, how do you get it out there? And forming good team is key. I like the idea of swapping equity for good team, right? Skin in the game, because now your costs are low, but the care factor's high. And that's how I think the platforms of the future actually will make it out there, is by forming a team and cutting everyone in on a slice of the pie with the professional parts covered. The developer, the marketer, the hustler. You've got to have the hustler out there as well, who can go and look for the investment and the opportunities. So it does take a little bit of a all-rounded team,
Yeah, I've done it with one of my startup businesses. It's all just equity. We've all kind of put in our time and
Yep.
our sweat
Yep.
sweat equity,
Sweat equity, yeah.
for in hope that one day we
Yep.
get paid off on the back end. And then the other thing, I think you just have to be resourceful.
Yes.
Resourcefulness is, I think, greatly undervalued right now.
Mm.
I've gone to universities to get platforms developed.
Yep.
You have to go out there, network within the tech community, really understand that, try to recruit people out of that community that might know something that you don't.
Yep.
But getting out there and just being absolutely resourceful and relentless.
Yep. Tenacious.
Yeah, tenacious.
You've got to chase it.
Yeah.
You know, like I have chased this now for since the day I started. I have been chasing it and doing things that, you know, really, if your heart wasn't in it, you just wouldn't do some of the things that I've gone beyond to do, and to be at places and to walk away with zero results, but to have a good attitude about that and turn up again and do it again and again and again, you know, and you only need 1 out of 10, and if you need 10, now you have to do that 100 times. Well, that could be a 2-year process for someone, but what are you willing to do?
Yeah, you just got to keep on going.
You
You got
gotta-
to keep on plugging and put your face out there until somebody goes, oh, I do know the person that you need to talk to, or I do want to use that product, or I need that product now and I didn't need it a year ago.
That's right. Things
You
change.
never know.
Things change. We were very fortunate that we were about 5 years before our time when we started. You know, apps were really only just coming in when we started developing. And you had great platforms like Uber come up and just, you know, basically capture a market that no one saw coming, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this ride sharing thing is just huge, and now everyone's catching an Uber, right? Like everyone. But 5 years ago, everyone wasn't catching an Uber 5 years ago. You know, and they've developed a lot over that 5 years, and their platform is pretty stunning, really. You know, so this is the thing, is timing is key as well. If something's already happening in the market and you're just coming into it, then you'd want to have a pretty decent value proposition by comparison if you're going to capture a market.
Yeah.
Because we're fickle. It's hard to get us on a platform. It really is, you know?
Well, yeah, just because of all that noise, you know what works for you. You're not willing to give up what you currently use to go into something else. It's very hard for us to. There's too much technology out there already that you're dealing with that you have to learn. Okay, I have to learn a whole new platform, how that works, how this clicks through to that.
Learning curve.
It's learning curve for everybody's mind.
Yep. Learning curve is one of the things that I've been sort of understanding more and more and more from a perspective of, I introduce WorkApp to someone, they say, what a great idea, I'm going to come and have a go at using it, and now how do we reduce that learning curve so that it's really easy for them straight up, so that they understand it straight away? And that's something that we're going through now as well. Video promotion and that sort of thing is something that we're endeavouring in the very near future as well, to be able to help people through that learning curve.
I think video, voice, those types of things are either going to help your consumer understand it and also help market your product as well. I think that's the way to do it. It's just, how do you get it out to a specific audience?
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, foot soldiers is the way to go. That's, like I say, I like the whole equity idea, and whenever someone's setting up a business, this is what they really need to nut out before they actually register the company, right?
I guess my last question is just around finances. So after that equity, at what point do you start to go, oh, I need investment into this operation, and start to bring other people in to help get you to that next stage? Because there's only so much you can do as a small startup, bringing people on. Depending on the idea, there's only so many people you can bring on and give equity to.
That's right.
You're going to also need funds to market, to sell.
That's right.
And get you to the next stage of operations.
Absolutely, and that's a huge challenge. You know, if you go to the venture capital market, they're quite strict on how things need to be presented and how the company structure needs to be. If you go to a private investor market, which is what we've done, then it's a lot of legwork. And you've got to really be willing to go out there and bash your head against a brick wall for a long time to get the results. That's the way that I chose. I went to a private investment market, and it's worked great for us, because it's also helped them become our test group in testing the product and that sort of thing. But it's not even one that I could really answer for you. As people say, how do you go and get the funds? Leave the house. That's how I did it. Leave the house, don't you? You're not getting them at home. And there's for a while there, I just made a point of asking every single person that I laid eyeballs on, that I spoke to. I just asked them, do you want to invest? Most said no. Some said yes. And it's the some that said yes helped me fund WorkApp.
Interesting. Interesting. And did you have to put together a pitch deck? Did you put together an information memorandum?
Information memorandum. Yep, information memorandum. And it was all one-on-one. It was all word of mouth. There was no, we're a private company, so there's rules and regulations around how you're allowed to market the investment opportunity. From that perspective, if you make the company public, then you can just bash it out there on social media and say, come and invest in this. But as a private company, you've got quite stringent rules in this country to adhere to. So we've made sure that we're squeaky clean and we've adhered to those rules. But it's been a huge challenge because I've always wanted to stay private as a company. The reason that I wanted to stay private as a company is I wanted to keep the leanest, lightest cost profile possible, because I know that that's where the risks come in over time through growth. The more the cost, the more the risk. The lower the cost, the lower the risk. And with digital evolution now, because we can handle a massive big user base with a small team, then our risk is low, but our revenue generation capability over time is very prosperous. And so that was the balance that I wanted to strike by staying light and lean as a private organisation. But that did give me a big challenge in funding the project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to tell us, or where can we find WorkApp? Tell us Facebook or website or app or anything like that.
So www.workapp.world is the web platform. WorkApp works for you if you go to the App Store or the Play Store. Quite often on the Play Store there will be other apps that say that comes up as WorkApp, and there's a few different ones out there with WorkApps and different things on the tail end, but WorkApp works for you is ours. WorkApp works for you is what we tagged as our tagline. So that's how you'll find it in the Play Store and the App Store. Otherwise, workapp.world, and they're all integrated as a platform as well. So you're going to see it by large. I've got lots of social media taking place now, and I intend to actually step that up 10 notches in the next few months. So it's time to hang this thing from the treetops. So WorkApp works for you.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to oversaturate the market.
Absolutely, yep. And become a personality and, have a very strong social media campaign, because otherwise you're confined to that small group that they just don't let you outside of unless you pay them quite handsomely. Yeah. Finding your way outside of that is the trick. But there's a lot of smart people out there these days, so it's about who you align yourself with and.
Yeah, team building's always a good resource to have.
The thing to understand is there's always a way. It's just finding it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's one of the things that I heard back in the early days, and I really took it, is one of the speakers says, if you think you've exhausted all avenues, just remember one thing: you haven't. And that for me was like, wow, okay, I'm just going to find a way. There's got to be a way, and that's the attitude we've taken all the way through, is just to find a way. Roadblock after roadblock hasn't stopped us. We've found a way, and now we're an operational platform that's growing.
Yeah, it's really how resourceful you are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Shane.
Awesome, Josh.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for coming on, and
thanks to the listeners and the viewers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yep.